Next, as the King seems to be on the road to recovery, Prince Harry will be back in the country next week, without Meghan. Will father and son meet? Our royal reporter Alexander Larman joins me now. Now, Alexander, the King was out and about on public duties earlier this week. So do you think that the public can be reassured that his health is getting better, that he's on the mend?
Well, I think that people have been obviously desperate to see Charles out and about. And I think that what's done, especially with this week's very high-profile visit to this cancer unit, is that he's shown people that he is wanting to resume the job, because certainly some of his family have been accused of not wanting to do the job enough and not being visible enough. And I think that whatever you think about King Charles, there's certainly a sense that he is like his mother, in that he's dutiful, but also he believes her adage that you've got to be seen in order to be believed. So it had enormous, symbolic importance that he was out and about this week. And also I think that it shows that clearly his doctors are happy that his health is sufficiently stable for him to be able to do these things.
Absolutely, it's very reassuring. And now Harry is meant to be back in the UK next week for the Invictus Games, but it's being bizarrely said that they're not actually going to be seeing each other, at least at the moment. What's going on with that?
Well, the trouble that we have is that there's brief and counter-brief from Buckingham Palace and from the Sussex camp and so forth. I mean, I can't imagine that Prince Harry wouldn't want to see his father. I mean, given that he literally dropped everything and came back to Britain as soon as there was the news of his cancer. So you start to think, well, is this out of inclination? Is it that King Charles doesn't want to see his son, or that Prince Harry doesn't want to see his father? Or is it, which I think it is instead, expectations management and briefing and counter-briefing, that if this doesn't happen, because obviously the King is in a very delicate condition, he's got to have this health monitoring done at all times, and you just think to yourself, well, it's not something that you can easily do. And so therefore you just have to ask, is there any chance that they will see each other? I would say it's more likely than the briefings are indicating, but who knows? I mean, obviously Harry's presence in Britain these days is always something of a mixed blessing, because if he's not suing somebody in court or suing the British government, as he's been doing recently, there's always a sense that he causes trouble. And I mean, if his fragrant wife is ever to accompany him, then things would get even worse.
Well, quite. I think she's not meant to be coming next week, is that right? And has she seen her father-in-law since he got his cancer diagnosis?
Well, she hasn't been to Britain in years, and I get the very strong impression she doesn't want to come to Britain, because he may be unpopular, but you can compound that unpopularity by about a factor of 100 when it comes to her. And of course, you can say it's misogyny. Of course, you can say that she's victim of briefings from various sources which are really unflattering. This might be true, but on the other hand, there is no denying the fact that the Duchess of Sussex has a degree of unpopularity which is practically unmatched by anyone apart from Hitler.
And there's reporting recently that her publicity team are trying to get her to have a better reputation in the UK. Have we heard anything more from that end? Is that a serious effort? And what could she possibly do to improve that image?
I was just thinking that a job as the reputation enhancer of the Duchess of Sussex must be the single worst job in the world. Because first of all, you have to deal with somebody who is not known for being easygoing and relaxed and all the rest of it. But secondly, you have a public that has made up its mind about her. And she had many years where people, I think, were willing to give her the benefit of the doubt, because there was a sense that she seemed to make Harry happy. There was a sense that some of you were different. She was a new face in the royal family. She was obviously a mixed-race woman. She was really bringing a sense that the royal family had changed and that there was this evolution. So I think people did give her the benefit of the doubt. But then it was the Oprah interview. If you want to take a single moment that changed people's perception of her, it was that. Because, I remember watching it on television when it was being broadcast, and I was shouting at the TV, that's a lie, that's an obvious lie, how can you say these things and not challenged? So I would suggest that anyone who's trying to restore her reputation has an uphill struggle on their hands, because apart from anything else, you can't change the past. You can't just wipe away the last few years. You can't undo their quasi-abdication, and you can't undo all the things that came with that. So I would suggest that she doesn't have any interest in Britain. It's not where her commercial fortunes lie. I mean, I can't see America Riviera Orchard being a bestseller of almost a Mason, that's for sure. So she doesn't need Britain, and certainly doesn't need her.
Yeah, tell us about American Riviera Orchard, which viewers might not have seen so much about. And someone compared it to me as like one of those what three words kind of combination where you just chuck some random focus grouped words in together to make it sound vaguely sensical.
Precisely. I mean, it should be America Riviera or Riviera Orchard, but not all three of them at the same time. It sounds like somebody couldn't make up their mind, just said, we'll have all of them. Well, for the uninitiated, and I envy the uninitiated who are watching this, Meghan Markle has a lifestyle brand that's called America Riviera Orchard. And the first thing that they have released is a pot of jam. And you think to yourself, to go from marrying, but I mean, you just think to yourself, to go from marrying Prince Harry in a ceremony that's been watched by untold millions all over the world, being one of the most famous, one of the most discussed women in the world, to launching your own jam. I mean, it's quite the journey, isn't it? And I mean, we're promised all these other things coming soon, and you just think, well, they're eminently resistible. And who on earth would want to be buying the America Riviera Orchard branded products? And she clearly sees herself as a kind of Martha Stewart. She sees herself as somebody who's going to do these things, and it's going to lead to her reputation in America because she wants to be a brand. I mean, she wants to be somebody who was making a lot of money out of trading off the royal connection, because that explains that. I mean, I lose track of what she's doing in terms of a Netflix series or Spotify podcast, but there's one thing in common with everything she does. None of it works. All of it falls apart. And you think to yourself, I mean, that awful Netflix series that they did, I mean, it was absolutely abysmal. And actually, what people don't talk enough about is that Harry's series on the Invictus Games was much better. I mean, it was much more watchable. He seemed much more committed. He seemed much more comfortable. And she wasn't really in it. And I think that explains quite a lot.
Yes, and of course, Alexander, it can never be easy for the women who marry into this institution. And so, some people might have a lot of sympathy for those in that situation. But let's talk about Queen Camilla, because she really seems to have come into her own, and especially in dealing with the King's illness. I think she's become, would you say that she's more popular than she's ever been?
Yes, I think that what everyone has always seen about her is that she's a very human, very warm figure. She's somebody who's, I mean, like Kate Middleton, she's somebody who's been seen as, because she's not entirely of a royal family, she can come in and humanise it by essentially not having to be so enthralled to all traditions. But, I mean, I saw that picture of her the other day when she's visiting with Charles at the cancer unit, and there's this look on her face of absolute love and absolute devotion to him while he's speaking, and you can't fake things like that. I mean, that's not the sort of thing that you could be told by your PR, give him a look of love and devotion. It's just something that comes naturally. And I think that in the case of Camilla, yes, I think you're right to say that she is at her most popular. And she has had a lot of help from image makers, and there have definitely been people who have been very keen that she's accepted. And sometimes I think this has felt like it's been foisted on the British public rather than a natural, organic thing. You will like Camilla. You will like Queen Camilla. But I think that set against that, I mean, what's people's objection? It's the fact that she supplanted Diana. Diana does not occupy the same place in public regard as she once did, because she died over 25 years ago. And obviously the series of The Crown has brought back memories, and obviously Elizabeth Debicki's uncanny impersonation of Diana made her once again understand why so many people were quite so obsessed by her. But you've got to go back quite a long way to really understand why Camilla was disliked the way she was and how Diana was regarded. So, I mean, time is a great healer, and I think that Camilla is now able to be her own person and she can exist on her own terms. And I think that's the best thing for her.
And finally, then, Alexander, let's talk about Kate, because it's great to see King Charles out and about and doing relatively well with his treatment. What about Kate? Because her absence from the public eye is what fueled so much discussion only just recently. Is she on the mend? Are we going to be seeing more of her?
Well, I think that we have to be honest about this. I mean, there is no update. There hasn't been any update since she released that terribly sad video. And I don't think this is one of those situations where you can say that no news is good news, because obviously she's a woman, she's a young mother, she's a woman in her early 40s who's been diagnosed with an unnamed form of cancer, and she has disappeared from public eye. I mean, on the one hand, her husband is obviously going about and doing his events, so you have to hope that if his wife's condition was deeply serious, he wouldn't be doing those events. But then on the other hand, there was a real sense earlier this year that the royal family didn't have enough people in it. And I think this came to a zenith when Prince Andrew was front and centre at a memorial service that William didn't attend. And you think, if you're putting out the Duke of York, you've really got a problem, because a man so shop-soiled as him is not... I mean, it's as if you want to say, let people think the worst about the royal family, bring out Prince Andrew. So, yeah, I wouldn't say that was a great idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we obviously hope all of them a speedy recovery. Alexander Larman, thank you so much for joining Spectator TV.